It's important to also state, although for the most part I've more so defined the real object moving relative to the planes. In a strictly technical sense, we could say that the quantum object is motionless and that the mirrors or the dark matter surfaces or the planes or the bubbles are getting closer and farther away. Based on my study of this system of the last 12-15 years, I don't believe that that's what's happening. I don't believe that the dark matter areas or planes are moving. I believe that they're fixed and they're myriad profuse throughout the universe are dark matter reflective surfaces that, if there's not information on them, then they're just reflecting dark space, the dark energy. So that's why we can't really tell that they're there unless information is implanted to their surfaces. If you imagine a mirror being way out in space and not reflecting any light or any planet or any star around it, then you would be very hard pressed to be able to observe or measure a distinction between that separate static mirror from the dark condition of the void around it, because it's not reflected anything relative to the way you're looking at it. So in essence, I'm showing that these dark matter planes or these dark matter vectors or reflective surfaces or potentially reflective surfaces, if they're not lit up with information, if they do not have bodies of information reflected to them, that it's basically asymptotic. It's an asymptote of the dark energy around it, the void around it. It's only going to reflect dark space. And if we're not aware that that mirror is there, then we'll scan the skies and all we're going to see is dark space, not even realizing that at one point we may have went over the dark matter plane. But it's only reflecting dark space because we don't see any objects reflected to it. If that makes any sense at all. Highly abstract charged concepts that I'm expressing here. But I just wanted to say it is possible that these planes can move relative to each other, but I doubt that that's happening. I believe it's the energy that exists between all planes, and that's reflected to all points of the surfaces of all planes, and also reflecting itself infinitely through each surface recursively, all different directions. I believe it's the energy, the quantum reality, the condition that's existing in between that's making all of the choices to move all of the surfaces and all of the recursive tails whichever way by moving itself. So just wanted to make it clear that I'm adding that into a the mathematical concepts here as potentially happening, that the quantum does not have to move if the mirrors themselves can move. I'm just saying that I don't believe that would be the case. So this brief synopsis does not even begin to explain the whole potential of the system as it relates to renormalization. We're going to have to really start experimenting with this system in categorical ways related to most or as many concepts of physics that we can bring into the model itself, so as to discern if the model describes these things mathematically accurately. We'll gradually be discussing this renormalization all inclusively in all different sorts of ways when we start drawing entropy, gravity, the Lagrangian eigenvalues, all of these things. We start really specifically and technically dealing with each subject related to up-and-coming string theory, membrane theory, the Sussy project, supersymmetry. When we start elaborating on each individual aspect, then we'll see many different variables that are relating to the process of renormalization. However, if you want to get a more comprehensive and, of course, bona fide, observable, measurable, and experimental, because we have the model here that we're working with, a tangible model that we can observe and measure for an even more deeper understanding into it, then I would encourage whoever's watching these videos to pay close attention to all posts that I'm posting to my Facebook theorem page, because all the proofs and axioms of this system are being provided as much as I can, as much as I have the time and the resources to do so. So I'm stating that this phenomenon of renormalization, by the way, I have to say this, this renormalization process, function, mechanism is not occurring on the surfaces. And again, we're always saying that. Really, everything that I've described at this point is showing that there is a demarcation between the information on the surface and the virtual extension of this information. There is a definitive demarcation. There is a separation between the special and the general principles related to the Einstein equation. And we're going to gradually start seeing these distinctions manifest themselves. Ultimately, I could fundamentally say the surface is the initial point where information starts to reflect, and that any or all potentials of any derivatives coming from in this surface and as existing in a virtual matrix has to do with understanding the entanglement and the uncertainty principles. But there is a distinction. One, the surfaces as the actual first and real reflection of the real object. Everything else is virtual. Another thing that's probably important that we'll be doing as we continue through these videos is we're going to start coming to a better understanding of these terms: real, virtual. You know, those things are explained in orthodox ways, and we've kind of formed our own conclusions about what real and what virtual means. But I'm going to draw other things, more abstract ways of reasoning on it, to really either see a distinction between what is real and virtual, or start coming to understand that they're actually two mutually interchangeable expressions if fully understood relative to this model. So I encourage everyone to continue watching these videos. Feel free to respond to any video. I encourage all questions, inquiries, critiques, no matter. Put it right on the Facebook, and I'll try my best to get to those as they're posted and with the time that I have. But aside from that, please consider the full preponderance and scope of my theorem as expressed on my Facebook page. So I encourage everyone to consider my page and to take time to get a broader view of this renormalization phenomenon. And a lot of that information is already written, but I want to start animating this system and making it more, you know, it's one thing to write these complex things down, and it's very hard to express without being verbose, and many times, you know, it's hard to express these concepts in a written way to where people can read it, and all the variables and the things that complicate that with punctuation and grammar, all these things make it a lot harder for a person to read this about the model and understand it. So I've decided to go ahead and start incrementally explaining this model via short, you can call them quippy, short segments, sections, as embodied in each individual video. But I will say, if I can get the time to get this out, just make some statements. As it relates to my model, and as stated before, my model can, simply and elegantly, explain everything. Number two, an honest scrutiny of others' models precludes dogmaticism. Number three, the recursion scenario, and as innate to my intellectual pursuits, vast study and knowledge of the issues we are discussing, does indeed overturn the standard model, as well reconciles all mathematically and scientifically veracious aspects of any model proposed today. Number four, in many ways, we are all intellectually and or abstractly trying to articulate what's occurring. My model, while accomplishing such, also provides a literal, tangible model, mirror to mirror, with which to test which thinkers are on the right track and which are not. Number five, my model really does relegate, if not will remove completely, all theoretical constructs and replace it with the knowledge of universal principle laws. These principles and laws, and as explicitly derived from mathematical statements and as embodied in the very principles of reflection and recursion, which I refer to as cosmological constants, can be categorically examined and exact, irrefutable mathematical statements made. This will necessitate a shift from the standard model and will require a new mathematical language or construct in order to fully define, and I'm working on that. Thank you.